Nós, estudantes de Relações Internacionais da PUC São Paulo e integrantes do Grupo de Estudo de Conflitos Internacionais, firmamos uma parceria com Democracy Now!
A partir de agora, vincularemos com legendas em português as mais importantes notícias internacionais da semana.
From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
In less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
World leaders at the United Nations General Assembly burst into laughter when President Trump boasts about his accomplishments. Trump praises North Korea, attacks Germany, and accuses Iran of sowing chaos, death, and destruction, drawing scorn from Iranian President Hassan Rouhani.
It is ironic that the U.S. government does not even conceal its plan for overthrowing the same government it invites to talks.
We'll get response to Trump's threats to Iran from Juan Cole, author of Engaging the Muslim World. Trump's fiercely anti-immigrant senior advisor, Stephen Miller, reportedly wrote Trump's UN address. We'll speak with his uncle, David Glosser, who calls his nephew an immigration hypocrite, saying his family would not have made it to the United States if the U.S. didn't accept refugees. Then comedian Bill Cosby is sentenced to 3 to 10 years for aggravated indecent assault for drugging and sexually assaulting Andrea Constant, one of about 60 women accusers.
I'm very happy to know that Mr. Cosby will do time in prison, that he is touchable like he touched us unwillingly. This is
okay.
All right.
Good.
We've got justice. We'll get response from another of Cosby's accusers, artist and actor Lily Bernard, who was in the courtroom when Bill Cosby was sentenced. She says he drugged and raped her in the early 90s when he mentored her in preparation for her guest starring role on The Cosby Show. All that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. President Trump addressed the United Nations General Assembly Tuesday, praising his administration's America First policies, assailing the International Criminal Court, accusing Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro of corruption, announcing new sanctions against Maduro's inner circle, and accusing Iran of sowing chaos, death, and destruction. Many of the world leaders and dignitaries in the General Assembly erupted in laughter when Trump boasted about his accomplishments as U.S. president.
In less than 2 years, my administration has accomplished more than almost any administration in the history of our country. America's so true. Didn't expect that reaction, but that's okay.
Trump's appearance came as his national security advisor issued another dire warning against Iran. Speaking at a forum for opponents of the Iranian government on the sidelines of the General Assembly, John Bolton threatened there would be hell to pay if Iran crosses the U.S. The threat came after the Trump administration defied U.S. allies last May by reneging on the Iran nuclear deal and unilaterally reimposing sanctions against Iran. And it came as Trump claimed he'd turned down requests that he meet with Iranian President Hassan Rouhani at the General Assembly, tweeting, quote, "I'm sure he's an absolutely lovely man." On Tuesday, President Rouhani responded to the threat, saying the U.S. is guilty of recklessness and economic terrorism.
It is ironic that the U.S. government does not even conceal its plan for overthrowing the same government it invites to talks.
President Rouhani also said he did not request to meet with President Trump. We'll have more on Trump's appearance at the UN General Assembly and growing U.S. threats against Iran after headlines with University of Michigan professor Juan Cole. Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee will turn to an outside female counsel to question Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh's accuser, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford, during a high-stakes hearing Thursday. As Blasey Ford is set to testify, Kavanaugh attempted to rape her when she was 15 years old. The Washington Post reports Republicans have selected Rachel Mitchell, Sex Crimes Bureau Chief for the Maricopa County Attorney's Office in Phoenix, Arizona, and longtime registered Republican to do the questioning. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell confirmed Tuesday the committee had hired a, quote, female assistants to, quote, ask these questions in a respectful and professional way. All 11 Republicans on the Senate Judiciary Committee are men. There has never been a Republican woman on the Senate Judiciary Committee. This comes as USA Today reports Dr. Christine Blasey Ford has submitted 4 affidavits to the Senate corroborating her claims that Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her. The declarations from Ford's husband and 3 of her friends say she told them of the assault before Kavanaugh's nomination to the Supreme Court. Meanwhile, Senate Judiciary Committee Chair Republican Chuck Grassley said Tuesday he would not delay Kavanaugh's confirmation process to give more time for authorities to investigate accusations by a second Kavanaugh accuser, Deborah Ramirez, who says Kavanaugh exposed himself and thrust his genitals in her face during a college party in a dorm room when they were both students at Yale University. On Tuesday, President Trump lashed out against Ramirez at the United Nations, questioning her account and saying the charges are part of a Democratic Party con game.
And now a new charge comes up, and she said, well, it might not be him, and there were gaps, and she said she was totally inebriated, and she was all messed up, and she doesn't know it was him, but it might have been him. Oh, gee, let's not make him a Supreme Court judge because of that. This is a con game being played by the Democrats.
Trump's attack comes as over 2,200 Yale women alumni have signed an open letter supporting Deborah Ramirez. Republican leaders have set a Senate Judiciary Committee vote on Kavanaugh's nomination for Friday, just one day after Christine Blasey Ford is set to testify. This all comes as attorney Michael Avenatti says a third woman will come forward before Thursday with new evidence against Kavanaugh, and officials in Montgomery County, Maryland, are reportedly looking into a 4th potential allegation of sexual assault against Brett Kavanaugh during his senior year in high school. A Pennsylvania judge has sentenced comedian Bill Cosby to 3 to 10 years in prison for aggravated indecent assault, labeling him a sexually violent predator. After Tuesday's sentencing, Cosby's publicist and spokesperson Andrew Wyatt compared Judge Stephen O'Neill's sentence to the sexual assault accusations against Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh.
What is going on in Washington today with Judge Kavanaugh is part of that sex war that Judge O'Neill, along with his wife, are a part of.
In April, a jury found Cosby guilty of 3 counts of aggravated indecent assault for drugging and sexually assaulting Andrea Constand, one of 60 women who've accused Cosby of sexual assaults dating back decades. Constand's was the only case still within the statute of limitations. Another Cosby accuser, Chelan Lasha, spoke just ahead of Cosby's sentencing.
He ruined my life at 17 years old. He took away my future, my financial, everything about me, and lived his life on over and over and over again with no regards. And I think he needs to pay for what he's done to everyone. I have nightmares about it this very day. And I want them to go away, just like him.
Later in the broadcast, we'll speak with another of Cosby's accusers, Lily Bernard. In the Gaza Strip, hundreds of Palestinians held a funeral Tuesday for a man who was shot and killed a day earlier near Israel's separation barrier with the besieged Palestinian territory. Gaza's health ministry says 90 others were injured after Israeli forces used tear gas and live bullets to disperse Monday's protests. Palestinians in the Gaza Strip have been protesting since March 30th under the banner of the Great March of Return. Since then, Israeli forces have killed at least 174 Palestinians and wounded over 18,000 others. Tuesday's funeral came as the World Bank said in a new report Gaza's economy is in free fall and collapsing due to Israel's 11-year blockade of the Palestinian territory. The report found youth unemployment in Gaza is about 70%, adding, quote, a situation where people struggle to make ends meet, suffer from worsening poverty, rising unemployment, and deteriorating public services such as health care, water, and sanitation, calls for urgent, real, and sustainable solutions. Argentina's central bank president resigned unexpectedly Tuesday, just 3 months after taking the post. Luis Caputo's departure comes as President Mauricio Macri attempts to win a loan from the International Monetary Fund in exchange for harsh austerity measures. Those measures have spawned massive protests against Argentina, including a 24-hour general strike this week that idled airports, shut down public transportation, and halted other sectors of the economy. This is protester Delfina Grinstein in Buenos Aires.
We're here to protest the IMF deal because we know that we're facing a very bad economic situation, and we're also against paying down the debt because all that money could be used for education and health care.
Back in the United States, a federal judge has restored endangered species status to grizzly bears in and around Wyoming's famed Yellowstone National Park. Tuesday's ruling by District Court Judge Dana Christensen in Montana reverses an order by Interior Secretary Ryan Zinke that threatened Yellowstone's estimated 700 bears, whose population has grown from just 136 when the bears were first listed as endangered in 1975. Zinke's move would have allowed for the first legal grizzly bear hunts in decades. And in Chicago, the legal team defending police officer Jason Van Dyke from murder charges presented a computer-generated video in court Tuesday, calling the 4-minute depiction of the death of Laquan McDonald evidence that the officer acted in self-defense when he shot the unarmed African-American teenager in a hail of gunfire in October 2014. The computer-generated video did not reflect what was recorded in a police dash cam video of the actual incident. It did not include the images of other officers at the scene, and it showed Van Dyke shooting just a fraction of the 16 bullets he actually fired at Laquan McDonald. Jason Van Dyke faces 2 counts of first-degree murder. He's the first police officer in Chicago to stand trial for killing someone on duty in 50 years. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. From Pacifica, this is Democracy Now!
I believed he was going to rape me. I tried to yell for help. When I did, Brett put his hand over my mouth to stop me from yelling. This is what terrified me the most and has had the most lasting impact on my life.
Dr. Christine Blasey Ford testifies publicly for the first time at an historic Senate Judiciary Committee hearing. We'll bring you her full opening statement. Then Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh.
This has destroyed my family and my good name. A good name built up through decades of very hard work and public service at the highest levels of the American government. This whole 2-week effort has been a calculated and orchestrated political hit, fueled with apparent pent-up anger about President Trump and the 2016 election.
Today, we play excerpts of the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing.
Dr. Ford, with what degree of certainty do you believe Brett Kavanaugh assaulted you?
100%.
You may defeat me in the final vote, but you'll never get me to quit.
All
Never.
that and more coming up. Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In an historic Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, whose implications will determine the makeup of the Supreme Court for a generation to come, Dr. Christine Blasey Ford spoke publicly for the first time about her allegations that Supreme Court nominee Brett Kavanaugh sexually assaulted her in the 1980s when she was 15 years old.
Brett groped me and tried to take off my clothes. He had a hard time because he was very inebriated and because I was wearing a one-piece bathing suit underneath my clothing. I believed he was going to rape me. I tried to yell for help. When I did, Brett put his hand over my mouth to stop me from yelling. This is what terrified me the most and has had the most lasting impact on my life. It was hard for me to breathe, and I thought that Brett was accidentally going to kill me.
After her testimony, Dr. Blasey Ford was questioned by Democratic senators on the Judiciary Committee who hailed her testimony as courageous and heroic. This is Illinois Senator Dick Durbin.
Dr. Ford, with what degree of certainty do you believe Brett Kavanaugh assaulted you?
100%.
Not one of the 11 Republican senators on the Senate Judiciary Committee, who are all white men, questioned Dr. Blasey Ford directly, instead ceding all their time to Rachel Mitchell, an Arizona sex crimes prosecutor, longtime registered Republican, who Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell called a female assistant. Mitchell was also scheduled to question Brett Kavanaugh on behalf of the Republican senators, but was quickly stopped from her line of questioning by them after she asked Brett Kavanaugh about details of the parties he attended in the summer of 1982, around the time the alleged sexual assault took place. In his testimony to the committee, Judge Kavanaugh repeatedly denied Dr. Blasey Ford's allegations, denouncing them with barely controlled rage and repeatedly choking up with tears in his eyes. He singled out Democrats on the committee, accusing them of staging a circus aimed at derailing his nomination.
This confirmation process has become a national disgrace. The Constitution gives the Senate an important role in the confirmation process, but you have replaced advice and consent with search and destroy. Since my nomination in July, there's been a frenzy on the left to come up with something, anything, to block my confirmation.
Just as Thursday's hearing gavelled to a close, President Trump took to Twitter to demand an immediate Senate vote on Kavanaugh's nomination, tweeting, "Judge Kavanaugh showed America exactly why I nominated him. His testimony was powerful, honest, and riveting," unquote. Republican Senate leaders are poised to hold a vote today after they reconvene the Senate Judiciary Committee at 9:30 a.m. A vote by the full Senate could come as early as this weekend or Monday or Tuesday. The planned vote comes as the American Bar Associations demanded a delay in Kavanaugh's confirmation process and an FBI investigation as well into claims of sexual assault. And editors of America magazine, the national weekly published by the Jesuits of the United States, called for Kavanaugh's nomination to be withdrawn. Georgetown Prep School, where Kavanaugh was a student when he allegedly assaulted Blasey Ford, is a Jesuit high school. The third woman to publicly accuse Judge Kavanaugh of sexual misconduct has spoken on camera for the first time about her allegations. Julie Swetnick alleges in a sworn affidavit she observed Kavanaugh at high school parties in the 80s, joining efforts to inebriate girls so they could be gang raped. She says Kavanaugh was present at a party in which she herself was the victim of a gang rape. Swetnick spoke with Showtime's John Heilman.
Brett Kavanaugh is going for a seat where he's going to have that seat on the Supreme Court for the rest of his life. And if he's going to have that seat legitimately, all of these things should be investigated, because from what I experienced firsthand, I don't think he belongs on the Supreme Court. And I just want the facts to come out, and I want it to be just, and I want the American people to have those facts and judge for themselves.
Julie Swetnick has demanded a chance to testify under oath before the Senate Judiciary Committee. So has another Kavanaugh accuser, Deborah Ramirez, who says Brett Kavanaugh exposed himself and thrust his genitals in her face during a party when they were both Yale freshmen. Ramirez's attorneys say they've been stymied by the committee's majority Republicans as they've tried to arrange to have Ramirez testify. Throughout Thursday's Senate hearing, Judge Kavanaugh repeatedly refused to call for an FBI investigation into the allegations. This is California Democrat Dianne Feinstein questioning Kavanaugh.
What you're saying, if I understand it, is that the allegations by Dr. Ford, Ms. Ramirez, and Ms. Swetnick are wrong.
Yeah, that is emphatically what I'm saying. Emphatically. The Swetnick thing is a joke. That is a farce.
Would you like to say more about it?
No.
On Capitol Hill, more than 1,000 protesters chanting, "We believe Christine Ford," rallied outside Congress and marched to the Supreme Court Thursday. Police arrested 59 people as they blocked a street in a peaceful sit-in protest. This is Women's March co-chair Linda Sarsour.
We are outraged at what is happening in that hearing room. The trial that Dr. Ford is being put on. Survivors are always on trial, and their perpetrators are always defended, and they're always protected, and we're tired of it. Enough is enough.
After headlines will spend the hour on Thursday's historic Senate hearings. In breaking news, a major magnitude 7.5 earthquake struck off the Indonesian island of Sulawesi today. Authorities have called off a tsunami warning. There's no immediate word of deaths, injuries, or damage. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Thursday he won't be pressured by President Trump into agreeing to a renegotiated North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA. Trudeau's comment came ahead of a Sunday deadline set by President Trump for Canada's government to agree to a new version of NAFTA or face additional U.S. tariffs on automobile imports.
The Americans are finding that the negotiations are tough because Canadians are tough negotiators, as we should be. But a good and fair deal is still very possible, but we won't sign a bad deal for Canadians.
Last month, the Trump administration and Mexico's government reached a preliminary agreement to revise portions of NAFTA. On the U.S.-Mexico border, construction crews had begun work on a new steel wall separating El Paso, Texas, from neighboring Ciudad Juarez. The new 4-mile-long section of 18-foot-high wall will replace an existing border fence at an estimated cost of $22 million. This is El Paso County Commissioner David Stout speaking at a protest against the wall earlier this week.
It damages this community because ours is a binational community. We all have family, friends, and coworkers who live on that side and work here, or vice versa. And in my opinion, we're sending a very ugly message to our brothers in Mexico. While it's one of the countries we in the United States depend on the most economically, especially the communities along the border.
President Trump has failed in his campaign promise to build a wall along the entire southern border and to make Mexico pay for it. Elsewhere in Texas, immigrant rights groups say some 70 immigrant fathers and some of their children have launched a hunger strike as they languish inside the Karnes County Civil Detention Center, a for-profit immigration jail under contract with ICE. The fathers on strike had been previously separated from their children at the U.S.-Mexico border under the Trump administration's zero-tolerance crackdown. Now reunited behind bars, fathers and their children are demanding immediate freedom. This is one of the hunger strikers speaking by phone with the group People Without Borders.
Today we started a hunger strike. Our children are with us. They are not attending their schools, nor are they eating. And we are afraid that ICE is going to retaliate against us and separate us again, as they separated 16 parents on August 15th. I don't understand the laws of this country. They are unjust. The majority of the parents who are reunited were freed.
The hunger strike at Karnes Detention Center comes as new numbers released by the Trump administration show at least 136 migrant children separated from their parents at the border are still in U.S. government custody more than 2 months after a deadline set by a federal judge for reunification. 3 of the children are under the age of 5. In Mexico City, President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador welcomed the head of the International Olympic Committee Thursday to a celebration of the 50th anniversary of the 1968 Olympic Games held in Mexico's capital city. The ceremony came just days after Mexico's government acknowledged for the first time that the state was criminally responsible for the massacre of hundreds of student protesters in Mexico City on the eve of the 68 Olympics. To date, no one has been convicted over what's known as the Tlatelolco massacre. Interior Ministry official Jaime Roshan said Monday, quote, "The use of sniper fire was a state crime aimed at creating chaos, terror, and an official narrative to criminalize the protest. It was a state crime that continued beyond October 2nd with arbitrary arrests and torture," he said. And in Colombia, human rights groups are warning of an epidemic of murders targeting environmentalists and leaders of social movements. New statistics compiled by a Colombian human rights group found more than 38,000 people have been displaced and 110 social leaders killed in the first 8 months of the year. The swell in violence is centered in areas where armed conflict has been historically most active, and as Colombia's peace process has faltered under its new right-wing president, Iván Duque. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman.
Nosso programa fica por aqui. Você pode acompanhar a gente pela página do Facebook e pelo blog do GS Terra em Transe. Nos vemos na próxima semana. Até lá!
Jornalismo é uma coisa que eu sempre quis e fica aquela coisa de você tá fazendo o que você gosta, então tudo acaba sendo apaixonante. Quando eu cheguei aqui, eu fazia questão de ficar aqui o dia inteiro só para conhecer um pouco mais, né? Porque a estrutura, o prédio antigo, toda a história que a PUC carrega e tal. As aulas têm um teor, puxam para um lado assim muito crítico. Eu acho que isso é muito importante para o jornalista, porque a gente sempre discute muito as coisas atuais que acontecem no nosso país durante a aula para exemplificar o que a gente está aprendendo. Porque muitas vezes você está aprendendo uma coisa que aconteceu há muito tempo atrás e você tem que fazer um link, né? Por que você precisa aprender isso? Os professores fazem isso muito bem. Você acaba aprendendo mais fora da aula do que na aula em si. Porque os movimentos políticos aqui dentro são muito fortes. Então você tem movimentos políticos de esquerda, direita, aí você tem gente falando de ecologia, você tem os centros acadêmicos, o pessoal discutindo marxismo, sabe? É uma coisa muito enriquecedora. Também tem o jornal Contraponto, que é um jornal laboratório do curso de jornalismo e que é um clima de redação, porque todo mundo vai lá, sugere pauta, discute pauta toda semana, tem deadline, tem fechamento, então a sala de aula a gente aprende bastante, mas o que é interessante são as pessoas que estão aqui dentro mesmo, porque vir aqui só ter aula você está perdendo muita coisa. Eu acho que você tem que explorar.
Economia é uma esquina de várias ciências, né? Na bolsa, se alguém comprou Petrobras, quer dizer que alguém vendeu Petrobras. Então quer dizer que essas duas pessoas têm opiniões radicalmente diferentes sobre a mesma coisa no mesmo momento do tempo. Então o mercado financeiro ele permite uma amplitude de opiniões muito grande. Então, se você não tiver muitas ferramentas para lidar com essa complexidade, você não consegue. Então, nesse sentido, um curso bom, como é o curso de Economia da PUC São Paulo, que passa por diversas áreas do conhecimento, tanto na heterodoxia, quanto na ortodoxia, quanto em outras escolas mais sociológicas de pensamento econômico, permite sim que você desenvolva esse bom senso para fazer o trabalho direito no mercado de capitais. A vida social dentro da PUC, a vida acadêmica, a vida de um movimento estudantil é muito rica, né? E acabou me capturando, né? Acabei entrando no movimento estudantil, virei presidente do centro acadêmico do Leão 13, né? Meu nome é André Perfeito, sou economista, chefe da Gradual em Investimentos e fiz PUC São Paulo.